Have you ever felt like an outcast in your own life? You're sitting there in class with this brilliant idea burning in your chest, but you keep your mouth shut. You see a group of people you'd actually want to know, but instead you just stare at your phone, and you tell yourself, I'm just introverted, or I'm naturally awkward. But let's be real for a second. Is it really shyness? Or is it ego? Think about it. You're so terrified of looking stupid that you'd rather be invisible than risk being judged. You're not stuck. You're choosing this. You're choosing the safety of your comfort zone over the discomfort of actually reaching your potential. You've built yourself a cage out of what-ifs. And here's the kicker. You're the only one holding the key. So stop using shyness as a shield. There's this whole concept in Adlerian psychology that says we choose to stay quiet because it gives us a perfect excuse. I don't have friends because I'm shy. That's way safer than, I tried and got rejected. Right? But true freedom? That's when you realize you don't need everyone's approval to matter. You just need the courage to be the awkward beginner. And here's the thing about all that anxiety eating you alive. Most of it comes from trying to control things you literally cannot control. You can't control what your classmate thinks. You can't control how your crush reacts. You can't control your teacher's opinion. Stoicism teaches you something powerful. Focus 100% of your energy on the only things you can actually control. Your own legs, your own voice, your own actions. Because confidence, it's not something you're born with. It's a muscle. You build it. Stop saying, I'm bad with people. Start saying, I haven't mastered this skill yet. Every time you feel embarrassed, don't see it as failure. See it as a rep at the social gym. You're getting stronger. So if you're tired of letting this armor keep you trapped in the shadows, if you're done being invisible, it's time to see what happens when you finally let it go. I've got a story for you about a student who got pushed to the absolute edge and had to use these 3 philosophies just to survive. It's a roadmap for anyone who's sick of being the person no one sees. Let's dive in. The gate of San Jose, I felt like a guillotine waiting to drop. Every morning, Liam practiced the art of disappearing. 3 weeks since the move. 3 weeks of lunch in the library's back corner. 3 weeks of perfecting silence. It wasn't that he was naturally quiet. He'd made himself that way. Back at his old school, he knew everyone. But here, the social landscape was already mapped out, claimed, fortified. The cliques weren't just established. They were sealed. He'd watched them from the edges. Athletes with their coated fist bumps. Theater kids whose laughter bounced off lockers. The overachievers camped out in the front row like it was sacred ground. Better this way, he'd tell himself, yanking his backpack strap until it dug into his shoulder. If I don't talk, I can't mess up. If I don't try to fit in, they can't shut me out. That was Liam's problem. Really, he convinced himself that social skills were something you either had or didn't, like being born tall or good at math. That his shyness was just who he was, hardwired into him, not something he was choosing every single day to keep himself safe. The shadows felt safe, until they didn't. Homeroom. Mr. Salazar clapped his hands, never a good sign. All right, listen up. Founders Day project. You're finding your own groups of 4. No, I'm not assigning them. You've got 15 minutes. He held up his phone timer. This thing is worth 40% of your grade, and it's all about social integration. Anyone left without a group gets to write a 20-page research paper. Solo. Clock starts now. The room exploded. Chairs screeched. Bodies moved like they'd been shot from cannons. Groups assembled themselves in seconds, like some kind of predetermined dance Liam had never learned the steps to. He stayed in his seat, frozen. His heart hammered against his ribs in this panicked, irregular beat. The clock at the front of the room started its countdown. 14:55. 14:54. Everyone else was already grouped up. To them, he probably looked unbothered, maybe even arrogant. Inside, he was drowning. And that armor he'd been wearing, that carefully constructed shyness, suddenly felt like it was made of lead. 12:30, 12:29. Liam's hands were drenched. He scanned the room, and everyone's faces kind of melted together into this blur of judgment. Every time he thought about getting up, this voice in his head would scream at him, "Stay down. Look at them. They've already got their people. If you walk over and they reject you, everyone's gonna see it. They'll know you're awkward." He felt stuck, like being an outsider was just his thing, some permanent condition. There was this group of three, a girl with a tight ponytail and two guys laughing at something on a phone, and they glanced his way for half a second before looking away. "See," he thought, "they don't want me. That's just how it is." But then something clicked. He'd been reading this book about Stoicism to deal with the whole moving thing, and there was this idea that kept coming back to him, the dichotomy of control. He closed his eyes, took a breath. What can I actually control right now? And it hit him. He'd spent the last 15 minutes spiraling over stuff that had nothing to do with him. What the popular kids thought, whether they'd laugh, their pre-existing friend groups. He was trying to control their reactions while completely ignoring the one thing he could control, whether he stood up or not. The timer? That's the school's thing. The groups? That's on them. But my legs? He gripped the edge of his desk. Those are mine. He tried to reframe it. This wasn't some test to prove his worth. It was just practice, like working out a muscle. Even if they said no, that didn't make him a loser. It made him a beginner. Getting rejected was just another rep. Still, another wave hit him. It wasn't just about rejection. It was about his pride. His shyness wasn't really protecting him. It was protecting his ego. He wanted to be liked so badly that he refused to risk being disliked. He was clinging to this image of being the quiet, mysterious guy because he was terrified of becoming that awkward transfer kid who got rejected. He remembered something else he'd read, some psychology thing about having the courage to be disliked. I'm not being shy to protect myself, he realized. I'm being shy to protect my ego. I'm scared of looking like an idiot in front of people I don't even know. 9:45, 9:44. The girl with the ponytail looked up again. Their eyes met. Every instinct told him to look at his shoes, to melt back into his chair, to disappear. But he got it now. Real freedom wasn't about being liked by everyone. It was about being willing to be judged while doing what actually mattered. His grade mattered. Growing past this mattered. Liam stood up. His chair scraped loud against the floor. Felt like a gunshot in all that noise. A few people turned. His face went hot. That deep burning kind of red. Everything in him screamed to sit back down, to just take the solo paper and stay safe. But he took a step. Then another. He wasn't walking toward a group. He was walking toward the version of himself that didn't live and die by what other people thought. 10 feet. That's all it was from his desk to that group in the middle of the room. But it felt like walking through a war zone. With every step, his brain tried to pull him back. Turn around. They're laughing at you. Look at how you walk. They're gonna say they're full. This was it, the real test. Liam realized his shyness had always been strategic. A safety net. I don't have friends because I'm shy was way easier to live with than I tried to make friends and got rejected. Being shy was his armor, but it was also his prison. He stopped at their table. The girl with the ponytail, her name tag said Sophia, looked up. The two guys went quiet. The silence was brutal. Maybe 3 seconds in real time. But in his head it stretched into this endless void of judgment. Hey, his voice cracked a little. A month ago, that would have destroyed him. Proof he was a complete mess. But now, he just registered it and kept going. It's just a voice crack. Keep moving. I'm Liam. New guy. He forced himself to keep eye contact with Sophia. Looks like you need one more for the group. I'm actually pretty solid with research and layout stuff if you need someone to handle the grunt work on the presentation. One of the guys, tall kid, name tag said Marcus, leaned back in his chair and sized him up. We were kinda waiting for Dave, but he's out sick. Not sure if he's even coming back this week. Here it was, the rejection forming right in front of him. He couldn't control, whether they'd pick Dave over him. Couldn't control that they'd probably rather have someone they already knew. "I get it," Liam said, his voice a little steadier now. "But the timer's at 5 minutes. If Dave's not here, you guys are risking the solo paper too. I'm here, I'm ready, and I'll actually put in the work." He just stood there, totally exposed. If they said no, he'd be standing in the middle of the classroom, rejected in front of everyone. But something weird happened while he waited. The fear started to fade. He realized that even if they shut him down, he'd still be standing here. The ground wouldn't open up and swallow him. He'd still be himself. Their no would only change whether he was in this group or not. It wouldn't change him. Sophia looked at Marcus, then back at Liam. She noticed the sweat on his forehead, the way his hands shook just slightly. But she also saw something else. Someone actually trying. "Dave usually slacks off anyway," Sophia said with a little smirk. She pulled out an empty chair. "Can you actually do layout? Because Marcus thinks Comic Sans is a professional font." "Hey, it's a classic," Marcus protested. "Sit down, Liam." Sophia pointed at the chair. "Welcome to the island of Misfit toys." Liam sat down, and that plastic chair felt like the best seat in the house. Those last 5 minutes on the clock, the ones that felt like a countdown to his doom, suddenly felt full of possibility. The group started talking about their topic, the history of the local district, and Liam found himself actually talking. Ideas he'd been keeping locked up started spilling out. Every time he spoke, that old anxiety would flicker up, but he'd catch it now. Their reaction? That's on them. Me showing up and contributing? That's on me. The Founders Day project became his bridge. Over the next week, those library meetings weren't just about research. They were practice. Representatives, he learned that Sophia wasn't actually intimidating once you got past the sharp ponytail and sharper comments. Marcus was struggling with his grades too, stressing about the same stuff. Liam started treating his awkwardness differently. Instead of going home and replaying every dumb thing he said on an endless loop, he'd just shrug it off. "Okay, that joke bombed. Still figuring out what's funny here. I'll try something else tomorrow." He stopped seeing his missteps as proof he was broken and started seeing them as information, just data helping him figure out how to be himself in this new place. The real test came on presentation day. Standing in front of the whole class, Liam felt that familiar heat crawling up his neck. He looked out at all those faces, the same ones he'd been hiding from for weeks. But something had shifted. He wasn't up there to win their approval. He was there for his team. He delivered his section with a steady voice. When some kid in the back row asked a tough question and Marcus completely froze, Liam stepped in. "That's a good question," he said. "Not perfectly, but clearly. Based on what we found, the reason for that shift was..." He didn't stumble, didn't burst into flames from embarrassment. He just existed, answered the question, moved on. By the end of the semester, he wasn't the transfer kid anymore. He was just Liam. He still had shy moments. That didn't just disappear. But he stopped using it as armor. Because armor doesn't just keep people out. It keeps you locked in. Last day of the term, walking out through those school gates, he didn't stare at his shoes. He looked straight ahead. The world hadn't changed. He had. He'd stopped trying to control things he couldn't control and started building himself into someone he actually wanted to be. The new kid was gone. In his place was just a guy who'd figured out that being shy or awkward weren't life sentences. They were just starting points for anyone brave enough to actually grow past them.